Hi, everybody. I'm an addict named Matt. Everybody can hear me fine without the mic, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, I want to start with just a little conversation because we're here to talk about PR. Does anybody here remember how they found their first meeting or how they first heard about NA? Anyone?
Yes.
Mark?
A treatment facility.
A treatment facility.
Yeah.
So they referred you to NA from there?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
Detox.
Detox. Anybody?
Lee County Jail.
In the jail. All right. So how do you think those treatment center, the detox, and the jail, how did they hear about NA? Anybody know?
PR.
PR went in and did a presentation to explain what NA is. And even H&I. When a new H&I meeting starts, does anybody here know the process for how that happens? A new treatment center opens up somewhere. They want information on NA. They want to get an H&I meeting start. They go online. They Google Narcotics Anonymous. What number do they find? They find the helpline number. The helpline is, in most places, a part of PR. They call the helpline. The helpline takes the information. They don't call H&I at that point and say, hey, these guys want an H&I meeting. They call PR. PR gets with H&I and decides to go in and do a presentation to explain what NA is, what we are, what we can do, what we can't do. And then they turn it over to H&I to set up the actual meeting, assuming that they have the manpower to do it. So all of you found out about NA in one way or another because of the efforts of PR. The meeting lists, the websites, the PSAs, the bus benches, all of that is PR. PR's whole job is to make sure that any addict that wants what we have to offer knows where to find us. That's what PR does. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to have Connor and Walter come up and do a little boot camp, and then they're going to explain the presentation from hell, and I'll come back and handle that. So you guys want to come up and do a little PR training, a little PR boot camp.
I'm Connor, I'm an addict. Walt, addict. Don't mind me, I'm a horrible public speaker, so I get nervous. So I just wanted to touch on some key points about PR and what we do and my personal experience with PR. First and foremost, my grand sponsor says the more inconvenient the service work, the better it is, and that's what I've that's what I've come to realize with PR. It's a very selfless service, and you don't get a lot of recognition for it, but it's so crucial to Narcotics Anonymous. One of the great things, I'm the Gold Coast chair of public relations, and one of the great things that we do is, aside from presentations, we do poster days. And poster days, basically we get groups of people and we split up and we go around the area and put up posters of the helpline number with permission. And it's not like we're just throwing the posters out there, like we're getting permissions from all the facilities to put the posters up. And just like some facilities are like, no, but some facilities are like, yeah, because, like the recognition of what we do carries weight in our neighborhood. Just because we were actually talking about this before, like even something as simple as wearing a shirt, your actions in public represent Narcotics Anonymous because you're wearing the shirt. Like they're going to correlate that with your actions. So like poster day is one of the good things that we do. Is same thing with we have a multi-area event called Pancakes for PR, and with that we generate money to put placards on the bus that goes through all the 3 areas that we have over there on the East Coast. And this is crucial for the helpline because you gotta, when it comes to posters and placards and everything, you gotta realize what's gonna reach addicts the most. Like what areas. Obviously, you know, like, we're not going to go into a dope hole and like put a poster up like that just because it would put us at risk. You know, what good are we if we're putting ourselves at risk like that? Other things that we do is like at least for Gold Coast, what we just recently did, we do presentations all over, but we just did one for Child Protective Services for Broward County, and that was you gotta understand, a lot of facilities don't have a good strategy on how to handle addict behavior, you know, especially when it comes like with children involved, you know. So like, you know, we try to represent and, you know, explain what we do, so the better we explain what we do, the more they can help society as a whole. You know, like, if we explain what Narcotics Anonymous has to offer to a place that doesn't know, instead of taking somebody's kids away and not giving them a solution, at least they could pass a message of hope, you know, or at least point them in the direction where the hope is. One of the greatest difficulties I've had as my term as public relations chair is the website, and I'm just going to speak very briefly on this before I pass it to Connor. My biggest issue with our website was that it was in control of another addict and not the area, and everybody has their own thing differently, but it's like sometimes having a paid position for somebody to do something is the right thing to do, you know. I know we like to have donations, and, you know, we'd like to keep it inside Narcotics Anonymous, but that doesn't always work out on our favor, as of what happened to us this past year, you know. We had troubles where the person owned a domain name, and then they had a resentment towards NA because we decided to go another way with the website, because the website was falling apart because they weren't doing their job, and they became resentful, and there was a period where they shut our website down. And that's so crucial. It's not about the resentment you have towards NA, it's the resentment you have towards the people in NA. If that's the case, don't take it out on the person who might be logging on to that website for the first time. That's why, in my experience and our experience as an area, taking the hands out of an addict and putting it to a paid position, at least there's no, what's the word? No conflict of interest, no, like,
Professional.
It's professional, and sometimes that's what we need, you know, where your feelings aren't going to get involved, and you're just going to hold a resentment towards a whole area where it's going to affect somebody who needs to get to a meeting that day. And the whole website issue has gone farther than it needs to be, but we finally have it under control. But I would hate for another area to suffer that same consequences, because, for an example, that same person that did our website was doing the regional website too, and the GICNA website, which is the Gold Coast Convention website. So not only were they messing up our website, all three websites were going down because that person took on too much responsibility instead of us delegating it to somebody who would have no attachment to their baby, as I may quote. And I honestly, I could go on forever about what PR does, but like the person who taught me everything that I know, from like I had like 90 days clean at the time, and they conned me into service, and now I have over 3 years, and I'm still in PR because I love it, you know, and it keeps my ego in check, you know, like I could do H&I or something like that, but I know myself, you know, like this is what's most useful for me, and it's useful for me because I'm selflessly helping others, you know, and without the recognition. So in that note, I'm going to present Connor.
I'm Connor. I'm an addict. And it's good to be here. I kind of just want to let everybody know real quick. I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep. I was in Philadelphia. I woke up in Philadelphia this morning, flew to Miami, got home, took a shower, and drove here. So I'm grateful to be here. Like, NA is the most important thing in my life. So I made a commitment to be here. So, you know, I pulled some strings with American Airlines, and now I'm here. You know? So, public relations, the way that it was introduced to me was I was living near the place where public relations was meeting, and I didn't have a car, and the guy that was chairing it was Matt, and this guy Adam told me you should come to PR. So I would just, you know, walk over there, and it was in this tiny little room with like 4 or 5 people that I didn't really know, and I had no idea what the hell they were talking about, like, for the first 6-7 months. And then I started to go to places like Area, and I had no idea what the hell they were talking about for like the first 6-7 months, and I'd be asking people like, what does that mean? Like, what is like policy? What is all this stuff? And they just say, keep coming back. And I wanted to know, like, I was so curious. I wanted to be able to like participate in the conversation and everything. So my sponsor taught me to get obsessed with my recovery, to try to channel that obsession and compulsion towards Narcotics Anonymous, and I did that. So I read policy, and I didn't really understand it, but when somebody would say something that was different other than what was in policy, my hand was going up, and I didn't know if what I was doing was right or wrong, if I was helping or hurting, but it felt good to participate. You know? So when I got involved in PR, man, it was a facet of Narcotics Anonymous that I didn't really know existed. But it was cool to me because, you know, I understood public relations like in a general sense of like how companies communicate with public, like how companies advertise, the relationships with other organizations that they have, and then developing the understanding of public relations in Narcotics Anonymous is like it's not it's not association or affiliation, it's cooperation. Like a lot of facilities we aren't like aligned with in any way, but we have like the common goal of sometimes trying to help people or get people in the right direction or just be available as a resource. Like one of the things that we did a while back was reach out to the local police department and see if we can get just a link to our website put up on the thing, because they had a list of all these local resources in Broward County, and they had AA, they had all these like different halfway houses, they had all this different stuff. And we brought it to the Public Relations Subcommittee and voted on it. And we're trying to, this is where I learned about like the 11th tradition. Because I learned about all the traditions through just sitting in rooms with addicts trying to figure out what the right thing to do is. And thankfully there was experienced members. And like the 11th tradition is like, as long as we don't have like Ben Affleck holding up a basic text and like, I love NA saved my life. And it's just information, like the placards that we have up on the buses for the PM Pancakes for PR, the flyers that we have, like that one in the top right over there, that's one of our helpline posters. That's information. It's just information. So it says drug problem, we can help. This is our website, this is our phone number, like, and that's it. It doesn't say we guarantee recovery. It doesn't say you will stay clean if you call this number. Or it's not a sales pitch. It's just, do you have a drug problem? If so, we can help, and we can. So it's not like we're offering something that isn't real. You know, the first form of service that I did in public relations was I went to a PR presentation. We set up this booth, had all the IPs stuck onto it. We had all the literature sprawled out on the table, and there was some other experienced members there. It was a health fair thing for like it was kind of in the hood in this middle school. It was like a back to school health fair type thing, And there was all these companies there that were like giving out backpacks and giving out like notebooks and all this stuff. And I'm like looking around, I'm like, we are out of place here, but we were just there and we had the information, and a lot of people came up to us and were just curious, like Narcotics Anonymous. Like, it doesn't really sound too appropriate, but it was kind of funny, man, because every once in a while, like, a kid would be like, Mom, like, look, check this out. And it's like, what we'd say, we'd have the meeting list and we'd be just handing them to people and say, if you know anybody with a drug problem or, brother, sister, son, daughter, friend, relative. And every once in a while, but man, this one lady was like, she started to well up and she's like, I can't stop taking pills. And I was just like, it's my first time ever going to one of these things. So I was like trying to grab one of the experienced members, and I just kind of sat and watched how this. And all he did was give her the information, tell her about our website, tell her explain the meeting list to her, what the different formats were. That's public relations. It's just information. We're not like, I got clean however many years ago, and this is what I did, and my sponsor said this to me. It's like, we're a group of men and women who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. This is the information that we can give to you. We have basic texts and literature for sale. If you can't afford one, we can make sure you get one. It's just information. And like Walt was saying, that's the humbling part of it. Because I want to be like, this is what I did and my life's amazing today. And if you do what I did, like, it could work out. But like, the reality is that my experience may not be appropriate for the public. Because like, even though I think a lot of people really do need this, it's not my determination to make. So what we do is, like, we have the Am I an Addict pamphlet. And it's like, you fill this out, and if you check yes, like, not saying you are, but there's a good possibility you could be, and just having that resource available and going to these different venues, man. Like, I was the Gold Coast chair for a while. I'm the current South Florida Regional PR chair. I'm just about to be done with my second year as the PR chair, and then on to some different stuff. But one of the coolest things we did, man, was like going through local county websites and just looking and seeing what events are coming up, because things are happening all the time in these different areas. So looking through like Broward County and Palm Beach County and Dade County to see if there's local health fairs coming up, and shooting these people an email, letting them know, like, hey, if you want us to set up a booth or be available or whatever you need, we're here. We have members that are willing to participate. Here's my number. Here's my email. And people, the thing that I didn't expect was that people really are interested in what we can offer the community. And like, one of the biggest IPs that we give out at these things is NA, a resource in your community. It's like the perfect one for interacting with the public in that type of forum. NA, a resource in your community. Because to the person who doesn't know what we are or what we do, this shit doesn't really make sense, Like, trying to explain why I go to meetings to my parents, like, they love NA, but they don't really get it, They're, like, grateful for it, but they don't really understand, like, what about it is helping me stay clean, why I couldn't do this on my own. So to have just some information available is a huge benefit. Helpline is an extension of public relations. And in Gulf Coast, is it PR or PI? PR, okay. So the helpline and public information have merged together. The helpline, I've been a part of the helpline for about 5 years. It's not like my favorite commitment, It's kind of like Walt said. It's inconvenient, so it's important, for my recovery, because I'm driving on the road and I have music playing and I'm like feeling the song, and my phone rings and it's NA Helpline. I'm like, All right, and I'll answer the phone. And the questions that I get and that other addicts have gotten are like sometimes as simple as what's the closest meeting to me, and sometimes as complex as I'm on Suboxone, am I clean? And basically, it's the same type of standard with PR where we don't have an opinion on that. Like, if my responsibility as a helpline shift person with my commitment is to get you to the closest meeting to you. I don't have an opinion on anything other than the closest meeting to you. I can't give you a ride. That's just, I don't know, that's just our area's policy. I think it's pretty smart. We don't give rides. We don't give any type of advice on what you should do. We don't recommend halfways or treatment or detoxes. All we say is if you go to a meeting and raise your hand, you might be able to get some help with that. But I can't do that for you here. And actually, one of the resources that will be available, if it's not already available, through the Grasshopper system is, to text the zip code of wherever the person is and get the 5 closest meetings to them from that zip code. So the way that we're able to carry the message and help the addict who's still suffering is like advancing technologically. It's kind of amazing the ways that we're able to help the addict who's still suffering today, even versus like when I got clean, which was like not that long ago, like 6 years ago. Like, the technologies has changed. There's new drugs, so we have to have new PR tactics, like different ways to reach out, different the thing that I've learned through my experience in PR is we have to be just as aware of what's going on out there and have our message kind of be able to coexist with that message, because there's a lot of negative messages going on out there. And Narcotics Anonymous isn't a negative message, man. It's a loving message. It's a helping message. So when a loving and helping message is being delivered to somebody who's defeated and broken, it's usually pretty fertile soil. Even if it's not utilized right then and there, just having the information be available that there's a place you can go whenever you're ready. It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be this year, but there's a place you can go where people want to help, and this is how you can get to it. That's PR. What we are, what we do, and how you can find us. Because realistically, it wasn't that long ago where there was not very many meetings, and there wasn't that many of us. And the way that this fellowship has kind of grown and evolved has been a huge PR push. And it's incredible, man, to see the result of some PR efforts. The gratification of PR service, that's anytime I got Walt involved in PR, I was selling him on how good PR makes me feel. Because if you want to get an addict involved in something, you have to tell him it makes you feel good. So I'm like, man, just the way answering the helpline call and just feeling that helping guide an addict, saving lives, man. And reeling people in like that, man. They, like I was saying, we used to meet in this small ass little room with 4 or 5 people. Now our subcommittee meeting has had to change venues twice to accommodate the size of our subcommittee meeting, because as a subcommittee, it's important that everybody has some kind of role and responsibility so that everyone feels included and participating. Otherwise, it's I can leave and no one will miss me. I don't have any reason to be here. But if you give somebody a role or responsibility, even as something as simple as making copies of something for the next meeting, then they have a reason to show up again. So that's what I learned as chair, to keep people involved was to give people a purpose, not make them, but let them know that they're valued and appreciated, and you better fulfill your commitment, or else. But that's pretty much all I have, man. I know Matt and Walt and I are going to do this presentation from hell. That's a lot of fun, and what was this? Alexa, play Eye of the Tiger. See that or Welcome to the Jungle.
There we go.
All right, Matt.
Matt's taking a nap.
Woo! Hi, everybody.
Come on, I was hoping he was going to.
The idea behind the presentation from hell is that I'm going to come out and do a lot of things we're not supposed to do in a presentation. So when I do, you're going to yell freeze and explain what I did wrong, and they're going to explain what I should have done. So I mean, we could start with the music intro and obviously the outfit. All right, so I'm Matt and I'm an addict.
Hey, Matt.
That should have been a freeze because in PR, I'm not an addict. I'm here to give you information about NA, not about me.
Oh, freeze.
I get it.
All right. So I'm here to tell you guys about Narcotics Anonymous, which is the best program on the face of the earth.
Single it out as the best program.
Yeah, we don't have an opinion on any other fellowship. Any other fellowship is an outside issue. It has nothing to do with Narcotics Anonymous.
We know about outside issues.
Yes.
Freeze.
Well, I'll go back to the outfit.
Freeze.
That-
Hideous.
Don't talk about Matt that way.
I personally love tie-dye, but it might not be what you want to wear.
Correct. It's definitely not. And I thought about it too. I didn't realize until I got here and put it on that this is actually a Fort Myers Gulf Coast t-shirt.
You gotta pass them, bro.
Hey, listen, I donated one of them and it got $50, so don't knock it.
That might be this. No, it's not. I actually tie-dyed this one myself at a fundraiser for ECNA. So, all right. So I'm here to talk about Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous is a program that helps addicts find recovery. The way that we do that is we have these things called meetings. People show up to them. At the meetings, we provide them with everything they need to
Freeze.
Nice.
What, oh, am I supposed to answer the question?
It's a
okay.
freeze.
We can't provide everything, can we? That they ever will need in their life. Right?
Keep
Like,
real-
you don't always
yeah.
have pizza.
That's promotional to promote that. We have information available. That's really how you want to say it.
All right. So I'll tell you a little bit about how Narcotics Anonymous helped me.
It's not about you.
It's not about you. All right, you take that one.
Good.
Why are you not in our subcommittee? That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
We have a born PR person right here. That's awesome.
Well, he's not here to share his story. You know, it's just to provide information.
Yeah. So I shot heroin for many, many years.
He's still-
Don't tell them about South Coast. We're not that specific.
If questions about that come up, we refer to the literature. You know, we don't care what or how much you used, who your connections were. You know, most of the answers that you're going to get, most of what you're going to give. I've actually done PR presentations with a lot of inexperienced members where all we did was read readings for the most part. Going into a detox. And, you know, there was me and a couple other people, so I went into a little bit about the history. And because they were very inexperienced, we gave them what is the Narcotics Anonymous program, the reading. We gave them who is an addict, the reading. So that was how they were able to participate. And in doing the presentation, we can bring people in that are very inexperienced to be a part of these with doing things like that. Like Connor was talking about, you know, getting people involved, giving them something to do. You know, that's the easiest way to build a committee. Someone needs to feel good about the work that they're doing. And presentations are no exception to that. All right, so where was I in my presentation? I was just talking about heroin.
You were shooting heroin.
In the presentation.
Yes. I was wearing shorts.
Santa Carlos Bass.
All right. So I'm going to put myself under the bus a little bit on this and give you another thing that I'm doing that most people haven't noticed, that some people may be very uncomfortable with.
Here's Steve.
I should not be giving a PR presentation with this situation, with this unshaven, with this unbrushed. I am a representation of Narcotics Anonymous when I'm standing in front of anyone giving a presentation. When I was doing presentations, I had dentures that I've since lost. I don't do them anymore because I am not in a position to stand up in front of professionals and represent NN. Until I get the dentures replaced or the teeth fixed in some way, I am not qualified to go and do that type of service right now. And I know we all talk about, the masks must go, we're going to be who we are, but at FADA with 1,500 professionals, which is the Florida Alcohol and Drug Abuse Association, 1,500 professionals from all across the state of Florida are there, and we put a booth at it every year. If I show up with these professional people that are wearing suits with no teeth and unkempt hair, I am not presenting Narcotics Anonymous in a way that is going to be attractive to those people. And it is about attraction. For a rule of thumb on the clothing, know your audience. Dress one step above of what you expect. If I know everyone there is going to be wearing a suit and tie, you can't really dress one up above that without looking like a schmuck, so I'm sure with a suit and tie. I'm not going to put on a tuxedo for it. But at the same time, I'm not going to show up in a suit and tie to give a presentation to police officers. Because they're going to discount everything that comes out of my mouth for showing up dressed like that. They're not going to want to hear what I have to say. I'm overdressed for the situation. PTAs, which we've done, parent-teacher associations. Collared shirt, decent slacks, nothing serious. One step above of how the normal person that's going to show up is going to be dressed. Because if you overdress, they're not going to listen to you. If you underdress, they're not going to listen to you. They will discount you based on your appearance. It's human nature. Even we do it in reality. Everyone does it. So it's very important to know your audience. It's very important to watch your terminology. When you come in and talking about clean and using NA language and things like that, you lose a lot of people because they don't understand our language. I try to learn the language that they're going to use. If you're going in talking to the human resources department of a treatment center, those people have a human resources language that they use. If you're going in to talk to law enforcement has a way that they speak and carry themselves. And it doesn't take more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes of literally just pulling a cop off the street and talking to them about it to learn what kind of language is going to fly and what's not. And those are all very important when you're giving presentations. When you guys go into DCF every year, you don't fly in talking about, clean and, just for today and throwing just NA cliches around at them, right?
Not at all.
Yeah. You learn how they're going to understand things and speak it to in a language that they're going to get it. Now, I started off as a presentation from hell and just kind of went into a weird training thing. Sorry about that.
You're shooting dope?
Yeah, I was shooting dope, and then I went off training people and stuff. I think I actually used most of my material that I was going to try and do wrong and just explained what you shouldn't have done, what you should have done anyway. Oops.
Yeah. You could be like, well, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior for me being clean today.
I am not a crook.
Freeze!
Buy my CD, definitely. This is all being recorded. Mark will be selling them later.
Mark, how many CDs did they buy?
And that's all promotional stuff. I'm trying to think.
Just to get some clarity, does anybody know on how he should have presented himself and introduced himself instead of I am an addict? Because I know we kind of skipped over that.
I'll give it a shot. Hi, I'm Mark. I'm from the public relations side of Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm here to help you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, like that was good. Like the way I normally present myself is I'm a volunteer. You know, I'm here just to send a message. You know, just to provide information to the public. I'm not saying I'm an addict. I'm not saying I'm in the program. I'm just providing information.
One of the big things that we've run into in doing some of the presentations is it's second nature for us to use NA language, like explaining it's important. You know, like when talking about the suggestions, like at a home group, like people don't know what a home group is. You know, the basic text, they don't know what a basic text is. You know, all this stuff that's so commonplace to us is totally foreign to people that don't know what we are or what we do. So kind of like going back to like way back when, before you were in NA and knew everything, what like that information was. Because I've caught myself saying some things that like isn't the right language, like to speak to somebody that has no knowledge of Narcotics Anonymous. So kind of trying to keep that in mind.
Doctors and nurses love media. PowerPoints are great for doctors and nurses. Specific literature, the new MIT pamphlet, or the MAT pamphlet, resource in your community. The little white book has a lot of good information in it. Who is an addict. Specifically, if you're going to do hospitals that are asking for meetings in there, you might want to try and bring in like a 4 or 6 rack with some that you would give to newcomers, like for the newcomer who is an addict, and even talk about leaving those in the emergency room waiting room. A lot of addicts come through there. It's a great place to have that literature. If you've already got the door open, I would try and move towards that while you were already in there.
Something else is if they're asking for meetings, just like any other situation, you got to find out what they're looking for too. You know, you don't want to just bring a meeting in there and you didn't know that there was smoking out. There's no smoking outside. Now people are smoking outside. You know, we need clarity just to put on the meeting list. You know, that's another part of PR. You know, like we need to know if they need to leave the area within a certain time. Is it a smoking? Is it open? Is it closed? You know, things of that nature.
One of the things that I've used in presentations, because there's a difference when you're doing like a booth or presenting to like a treatment center where they already know about NA and what NA is, and it's pretty much just a formality, versus a place where there's a good possibility they have no idea about Narcotics Anonymous. So I want to try to present as professional as an image as possible. What's available for purchase, there's these PR folders where it's just like, it's an IP size folder. It looks really nice and clean, and you can put IPs and other information in there. You can put meeting lists, NA resource in your community. I like to put the one that, I forget what the IP is called off the top of my head, but it has basically all the countries that NA meets in and all the statistic information.
Survey.
Yeah, the survey, the membership survey, because it really does, not to go too off topic, but whenever I do any type of presentation, I ask, do people know what country has the second highest amount of NA meetings in the world besides the U.S.? And when people find out it's like Iran and Russia, it blew my mind, you know, when I found that out, to understand that this is way bigger than just happening at this presentation right here. This is worldwide, and people that aren't even in recovery kind of get fired up about it, to be able to be a part of it. You know, so that I like having that in the folder as well. And again, kind of depending on who you're presenting to, am I an addict can be appropriate depending on who you're presenting to. Definitely always want to try to include meeting lists. because that's good for whoever, you know, even if they just pass it on to somebody else.
How many people to go do the presentation should go?
At least 2.
At least 2.
That was the other thing that nobody caught, is that I was up there doing it myself.
One experienced member too. It has to be
Yeah.
at least one experienced member.
But you can bring more, but you don't want to overwhelm them either. You know, particularly if you're going to talk to 1 or 2 people and you show up with 6, like those 1 or 2 people are going to be uncomfortable with that. You know, like the one that they're doing at the DCF, do you have what, 15, 20 people that you're presenting to?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can come with a few more people and not overwhelm them in the process.
Yeah, we can't have 4 people and
We
it was
can't.
perfect.
And like the thing about the 4 people is like, it was 2 experienced members and 2 new members. You know, and we also had people from other areas that had no, like some areas don't have any experience with presentations, so they tagged along just so they could be the experienced members in their presentations. You know.
Yeah, it is.
doing your next one? Because we don't have really any experience member.
Was it the speed one?
We got a couple. Well, we haven't set a date for the next Child Protective Service one. We haven't set a date for because it was hard to get in contact with one of the hospitals. But the next one that we have definitely locked in is this.
What about
It's a stimulant. It was just like cocaine, meth, and stimulant convention and.
It was like prevention awareness type thing. It wasn't like
It's not like it's like, all right, let's show up. No, but that was the thing, you know. Through PR, somebody contacted Narcotics Anonymous, which contacted the zone, which contacted the region, which contacted me, and that's how that works. Because it was in my area, so the message got down to me, and I bring it to the subcommittee so we could bring a presentation there, and that's that. You know, even something as simple as responding to an email, you don't want to like G2G, you know, like to the person. Like you want to be as professional as possible.
LOL.
And like proper punctuation, things of that nature. Just like Matt said, you know, you have to know your audience, and sometimes you don't know who you're talking to in an email. So it's rule of thumb is be as professional as possible, because even when speaking in a presentation, like Connor said, it's second nature for us to use recovery terms, but the best way I could like relay that topic is like going to do like an H&I speak and talking about step 7. Like these people don't have any idea about step work. So know your audience. Even if you don't know your audience, try to have it as a rule of thumb is like the information's not wrong. You know, the literature is always going to be right. So if you just stick to the literature, all you're doing is providing the information that the literature is already there for. You know, pick up our bacon and stuff.
Any questions?
Yeah, I guess we open it for questions. Even try and throw out some questions you think you might get from doing a booth, or you know, try and stump us. Try and come up with something rough to answer.
Where do I sign up, bro?
One of the big ones you get is, what do you guys take all insurance? It's like-
There's no place to sign up. You just come into a meeting and sit down and have a good time. How about my brother's on methadone and you guys keep telling him he's not clean and not to come to the meetings. What do I do?
But in that type of situation, it would like, is my brother clean? He's taking methadone. Is what we typically recommend for people if they're not sure if they're clean or not is to go to a meeting, read our literature, and kind of make that admission and discovery for themselves. But it's not our place to say if you're clean or not, or if you're an addict or not.
And I even have, particularly in the new MAT pamphlet, sometimes it is good to have a little integrity and give a little bit more, not direct, but, that different meetings do interact with people differently. If you're showing up to a meeting where you're getting a response to that, my suggestion would be to try some different meetings. Because you're going to find other meetings that are going to be more open and it's not going to get the same response. We have a wide variety of meetings in Narcotics Anonymous, and they are autonomous, and they all kind of make their own way that they handle things. So if your brother is getting a response like that at a meeting, don't go back to that meeting. Try a different one.
Do schools a lot reach out to you guys in your experience with high schools, middle schools?
While I was chair, they were quite a bit actually inviting us to health fairs. And that was it was a carryover from relationships that had been already established from reaching out. Because typically, once we go and, don't burn the place down and actually do a good job and everything, they'll invite us back year after year to continue to do these presentations, because usually it's annual events or semi-annual events, and usually our presence is valued at those types of things. So it's about establishing contact. A lot of the information on how to reach out to these places and kind of the best approaches and tactics I found in the PR handbook. That's obviously it's the handbook to PR, so it has everything. It's like the instruction manual. And that's it taught. Once I got out of the hanging off of what everybody like Matt and Adam and other people said, and I wanted to learn more for myself. A lot of the questions that I had, I found the answers just by looking in the handbook. It's a great resource just to have, and it's available on the NA.org website as a PDF.
And talking about the building relationships is a big part of PR. Gold Coast used to do booths twice a month. We had all kinds of people inviting us out to doing things, and that was kind of our main focus for a long time. And over the years, as some of the chairs have changed hands, some of those emails got ignored. And a lot of those relationships went by the wayside because whoever the new chair was, in certain cases, didn't follow up and didn't continue to foster and build those relationships with those people. So we have, I'm correct in saying, we've lost a lot of that. I mean, I was chair 6-7 years ago, and we were doing 2 or 3 booths a month.
Yeah.
It's not really like that
To
anymore.
follow up on that, it's the responsibility of the committee, but the chairperson has to do his job too. I came into a position where I pretty much the past year have been just fixing the problems. And I'm not saying, the person didn't do the job, whatever, I'm just doing what I had to do, where what good is PR if we're not providing correct information? What good is doing a presentation and nobody's updated the meeting list? That, not the meeting list online, but the meeting list we're bringing in there. What good is PR if in the past year, the previous chair, people sent emails and they never replied? And it's oh, you want me to send an email a year late? Hey, what's going on? We want but that's the reality. I'm not saying I had to start from scratch, but the great thing about my year, the past year, and I'm getting reelected as well.
Maybe
We'll see. The vice chair didn't step up. Is I had a great subcommittee to help me out the whole way, because this is a lot for one person. But if everybody in the subcommittee chips in, it's something that helps us all, because the more everybody chips in, the more opportunities we get to help somebody who's never heard the message.
Delegating responsibility is a huge part of operating in a subcommittee. It kind of touches on what we were talking about before, about there can be like vote within the subcommittee to have somebody be the guy that answers and replies, or reads and replies to emails. I know for a time when I was first elected chair, I was getting emails, and I didn't feel confident in replying unless I printed out the email and printed out what I was going to reply and brought it to the subcommittee and was like, is this good? Like, can I send this? Because I didn't want to say anything, or like, I just wasn't confident in my ability to communicate with these facilities at that time. And like anything else, through practice and developing an understanding, it became a lot easier. And 9 times out of 10, people aren't as serious as I envision them to be.
Connor, quick question. After you do a presentation to whomever, do you normally, how long is it before they respond? Do they normally respond then? Or when is it appropriate to do follow-up? Because some of these agencies and hospitals can take months before they get back to you. Is it appropriate to follow up within a month or 2 weeks?
It's really, there's no like rules or regulations with that. It's really kind of like was talked about, like get a feel for the person that you're communicating with. If you send them an email and they don't reply within like a month, then I feel like it's appropriate to send a follow-up email. But if there's something like that's coming up relatively soon, and you feel like it would be a good place for PR to be, that we could, it would a good place for information to be available, send a follow-up email, or maybe email a different, like I had with one of these school boards, there was a link on the website to contact the individual to see, I just wanted to see if they wanted us to do a presentation or have anything brought into the school. So I sent an email to the lady. I think 2 months went by, never heard anything. So I just kind of like clicked around some more, found a different email and sent it there, and they replied. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I just wasted 2 months. I should just email this person. But it's like a trial and error thing. Like I learned a lot as I went, because there's some things that aren't in the PR handbook. Things like that, like how long do you wait before you reply? Like who do you like continue to pursue and who do you give up on? Like, things like that. It's just more like a case-by-case basis.
Do they often say yes or no right then and there? Or has that experience ever happened?
I've had a lot of, I need to check with my boss. That's usually the response we get. And then from there, it's like I follow up after 2 weeks if I don't hear anything back. But normally, they're like, we don't have anything coming up right now, but we'll keep you in mind in the future. And in several instances, months later, we'll get an email. We're having this back-to-school health fair. We're having this. One of the ones that we got plugged into was the work release, having the NA at the work release at the prison when they're releasing the inmates. To have an NA booth set up there is huge. It's huge. It's a great opportunity. And I know in this area and a lot of the neighboring areas, like there's a big presence in the prisons and like a strong desire to reach out and help in the prisons. So that could be a good PR opportunity to try to see if you might be able to establish a booth at a work release program.
Also depends on the type of, like when you're going in to do a presentation that they've asked for an H&I meeting, like that the yes is already there, they're asking for it.
Right.
So then it's really more up to H&I to make sure that they have the manpower and the coverage and everything like that. So, I mean, I've gone in and done presentations and found out that we didn't have anyone to take in a meeting yet, so we couldn't commit to doing a meeting there. But we'll have H&I get back to them when they do. With the other things, there actually is in the PR handbook, there is like follow-up email and letter templates that you can use. It doesn't say when to use them, but I mean, as a rule of thumb, when I was the chair, I'd shoot them an email about a week later if I haven't heard anything from them, and then I would leave them alone and see what kind of response I got. Yeah, it is. The follow-up is very important. It really is.
So another question would be, like Mark said, that they're considering going to some hospitals. So would it be appropriate for PR to get a hold of H&I before they even go to the hospital, just to give them a heads up in case they said, yes, we are interested, and then they would know that they would have the manpower to accommodate that.
Oh, they work in conjunction. That's the way it's usually supposed to.
But is the hospital asking for an H&I meeting, or are they wanting to have a meeting?
In this
regular
specific
meeting.
case, the hospital reached out to have a regularly scheduled meeting held in it.
That's the way I understood it, yeah.
Right.
And the other important thing on that I would ask the question for is the hospital wanting to have their NA meeting, or are they wanting to allow space for us to have an NA meeting? Because the difference is important. The hospital can't really have an NA meeting. They're not going to have their staff come in and chair and speak and run an NA meeting and talk about the things that they do for addicts and call it NA. That's not okay. That's not what we do. If they're going to rent space to us to go in and have a Narcotics Anonymous meeting that's, the chairperson and the group and the business meeting is NA, then that's a very different scenario. And I've heard of places, specifically treatment centers, literally asking for the ability to do that, to have, Foundation's Narcotics Anonymous meeting that's run by Foundation's people and is not really an NA meeting for the most part. So that's an important distinction to ask for.
For those that don't know, like at the regional service conference, like the subcommittees meet, there's PR chairs from all the different areas in the South Florida region that come together, and kind of it's just like a melting pot of information, because different areas struggle with different things at different times, So what one area might be struggling with, 6 months from now, an area might be struggling with currently, and within the time that the next area, they've already figured out a solution. So at region, they can come with like, this is what we did, this is what worked for us, or this is what we did and it didn't work, don't do this. Sometimes it's both.
Therapeutic value.
Yeah, but that like in that regard, that's if you come up with something like that, an OD package, and you bring it to the region, we can give it to the other areas, and they can try to follow suit. It's like it's all for the common good. It's not like this is Gulf Coast's brainchild. It's like this is Narcotics Anonymous, like working together to help the addict who still suffers. And it's like that's the coolest part. It's so cool to see how that kind of works. But sometimes some areas get possessive with their ideas.
And on the same thing, there is 2 areas in Carolina and North Carolina that have done something similar already. And I can get you some information on to talk to them about how they did it. And I learned about it because our zone, the Southeast Zonal Forum, has a webinar, a PR webinar once a month on the second Saturday of every month at 2:30, where we have people from 6 different states get on there and talk about what's going on in their PR, and kind of the same idea as the region, just stretched out a little bit more. So I can get you the information for that too, and it's I've learned a lot from it. If you're wearing an NA t-shirt walking around a grocery store, people recognize that symbol, whether you like it or not, right then and there. As soon as they know you're a member, you're doing PR. That old lady pushing her cart down the aisle might have a family member with a drug problem. And you might be the only basic text that person ever sees. And your behavior when you're wearing that t-shirt, when you're carrying that basic text, or wearing that hat, or wearing that necklace, might dictate whether or not someone else learns that Narcotics Anonymous can help them. You are PR as soon as someone finds out that you're a member of Narcotics Anonymous and you're interacting with the public. I do not have an NA bumper sticker on my car because I drive like an asshole. I wear NA t-shirts and hats and everything because it keeps me on my best behavior in public. But when I get into my car, I'm not capable of best behavior practices. I have a 600 horsepower Camaro. I'm going to drive fast, and I'm probably going to cut people off. And I know that about myself. So I'm not going to do bad PR for NA by putting an NA bumper sticker on my car.
Dual personality.
A good example of that as well, not even relative to wearing the logo, is an experience that I had where I was on an airplane maybe 2 months ago, and I heard this lady freaking out at the stewardess, and I look and I recognized her from meetings. And I was thinking, I was like, if I'm a newcomer and I see this lady freaking out on the stewardess, I'm not going to want to be around that, you know? So that kind of triggered the thought to me, is like, all right, I really need to try to, like, you know, behave. You know, it's hard. It's forced a lot of step work. You know? But I had never even really considered that. I was like, I'm not wearing an NA t-shirt. I don't have the keychain dangling from my pocket. I can do whatever I want. And then, you know, a higher power kind of just like, no, you can't. So, does anybody else have any other questions before we shut it down? Well, thank you guys so much for participating and being here and listening.
All right, one more time, let's give it up for the guys that came all the way out.